So we are the last time we were here with me, we are finishing up. So tonight we're going to finish up 2 Samuel. And the first part was, we talked about, was really a good positive thing because it was about David and his kingdom and all of his accomplishments. And so that was really good, how he united the people and everything. And so now this part is kind of the downside. And that is one thing about the Bible. They don't just sugarcoat it. They tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's good because this book is a love letter, and it's an instruction book for us. And it lets us know that nobody in this book except Jesus was perfect. And so if there's an opportunity for them, then there's a chance for us. There's redemption for us. And so let me go back just a little bit for Brenda and just explain. We're going through the entire book, the Bible, all the books. And we're using as our foundational a study by Marilyn Hickey called The Bible Encounter. And so that's those papers that you have there. And then what we also have is we all got these bookmarker cards, and if you look at it, it's going to tell you all about the books and how many chapters and stuff is in it. So let's go through our little drill real quick. So how many books are in the Bible? 66. How many are in the Old Testament? How many are in the New Testament? That's right. Okay, the first 5 books are called what? Right. Yes. Then the next set is 12 books, and they're called what? Okay. How many is in the next set?
5.
Yes, and they are the poetry books. Yeah. Okay, the next group is the major prophets. How many's in that? Okay. In the minor prophets, how many is there? 12. 12. What? Oh, there's a bunch of them. Okay. Why are they're called the minor prophets? Why are they called the minor prophets? Because they're short ones, that's right. Okay, now we go over into the New Testament. First 4 books are there's one book identified as history, yes. And then the first 13 books are, who wrote those letters? The first 13, not the first 13, the first, but anyway, 13, yes. And then there are 8, and they're called what? That's right. And then the last one is called, right, the Book of Revelation. Okay, so we've done that little bit because we haven't done that in a while, and as we are getting more people coming in, then I want to keep that going. Okay, John, if you don't mind, Beth just brought in some handouts. If you don't mind handing out those, please. So, like I said, we're in 2 Samuel. And we're going to be talking tonight about, we're going to be starting in chapter 11. And we're going all the way through to the end of the book. So these first 11 through 20 are talking about all the weaknesses and the failures with David. And so when we start, we're going to be in 2 Samuel. The 11th chapter, and it's interesting to me. Now, guys, I'm into Bible numerology, and that's one of the handouts that you guys have gotten about the Bibles and the significance of the numbers and everything. And isn't it interesting that 5 through 10 were about David's things he did, his accomplishments. But then when you hit that 11th chapter, and 11 is the number of rebellion, it's the number of disorder, it's the number of judgment. And so we're going to talk about the famous, one of the famous stories about David besides the Goliath one. So it says, chapter 11, it says, in the spring at the time when kings go off to war. Now, isn't that interesting? Back then, they had a certain season that they would go to war. You know, with us, I have a calendar, and it's got all of the various wars, when they started, when they ended, and stuff like that. And for the United States, it's just all over the place. There's no rhyme or reason. But here it's pointing out that when kings went to war, it said David sent Joab, remember Joab is over his entire army, out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites. Remember in chapter 10, we talked about, just briefly, I just referenced that David defeated the Ammonites. And so he sent them out and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. Okay, that's your first red flag. That's your first red flag. He should have been out there with his men. And for some reason, David decided, I'll sit this one out. It says here, one evening David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out who she was. Now, I'm just going to keep on going with this. We're not going to read all of it. But we know, and it was Bathsheba. Now, some have said, you know, I've heard it preached and that, you know, she knew he was there, and she went up on that roof so he could see her. I don't know. I don't know that. Again, all the military is gone. David goes with the military. He didn't. He's sitting at home, okay? And what it says in this is she is up there bathing. The men are gone. So she's okay, she's thinking. And what this is with the Jewish traditions and rituals is that once a woman has had her cycle and it ends, she has to go through 7 days of purification. And then after the end of that 7 days, then she goes and she takes a mitzvah, a bath. And so she's taking a bath, okay? And David sees her. And so then he's like, he likes what he sees. And so he goes and has her sent, he sends somebody to have her come to him. And, you know, I guess some of us think, well, she should have protested. She should have said no. But listen, when the king calls you, you go to him. When the king asks you to do something, you do it. And so that is my feeling, that is my thought on that, is because, you know, we don't understand because we're not in a kingdom. We're in a democracy. We have a elected president and all that. But she really, she didn't have a choice as far as but anyway, after she goes back home, and then he gets a notice that she is with child. Now, she has a husband named Uriah, and Uriah is listed, and he is one of David's mighty men. And so Uriah is out with his buddies, his brothers in arms. And so David's like, oh, I got to do something here. I got to cover this up. So he sends for Uriah to come home. Now, Uriah is loyal to the crown and loyal to Israel. And what I understand, you know, again, I've not been in the military, but because I have a military dad and on and on and on, I understand that camaraderie in that, you know, we won't leave anybody behind kind of a thing. So he comes home, and he won't go in his house and be with his wife. He stays outside. And so then David tries to encourage him another time. And Uriah, he won't. He's gonna if my brothers have to sleep on the ground, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to go sleep in the bed with my wife while they're suffering and going through. And so it doesn't work. So what happens? David gets a plan. And he's repeating what his father-in-law Saul, King Saul, did to him. When Saul wanted to get rid of David, he put him in charge and had him go on special missions trying to get him killed. And it didn't happen. Well, here's what David does. David gets in touch with Joab and says, look, get Uriah, put him on the front lines, and abandon him. And that's what they do. So they killed Uriah. Well, as soon as they find out that he's dead, then David marries Bathsheba. And the interesting thing, too, is Bathsheba, her father was also one of David's mighty men. And so anyway, and I guess David probably thinks, I've got it covered. I've taken care of everything. Well, in chapter 12, the prophet Nathan comes in. Remember, we talked about him, Nathan, earlier. So he's the next one that we hear about. It says, and so when you look at chapter 12, when you look at verse, I'm going to read in the middle of verse 1. Nathan comes to him, and he tells him a story. He says, there were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. Well, see, David's a shepherd. He's understanding. He's comprehending this. And David's tenderhearted. But again, we found out that if you make him mad, no holds barred. He's gonna get you. David burns with anger against the man, and he says to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, this man who did this deserves to die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity. And of course, Nathan says, you're the man. And he's like, just like, So the thing is again, when this happened, and there was a punishment that occurred, but God did not do what he did to Saul. Remember with Saul, when Saul screwed up really bad, God came and said, I'm taking the kingdom away from you. You will not be an heir. Your children will not be an heir. There will not be another Saul and one of your sons. But with David, his heart, he repented. And he cried out to the Lord to forgive me. Well, the thing also was Nathan told him, said that the baby's going to die. Well, Paul thought that, I'm sure he thought that, well, if I really pray and fast and seek God, maybe he'll spare this innocent baby. This baby was born. I mean, it had no choice. It was born. But no, that's not what happened. The baby dies. And then when he dies, for those, most of y'all know this, but when he dies, all of a sudden everybody is walking on eggshells around David, because they don't want to tell him the baby's dead. Because if he's act this way when he thinks the baby's going to die, what in the world is he going to do when he finds out it's gone, it's dead? So they're tiptoeing around and they're whispering and stuff like that. And David probably is like, what's going on? This is me paraphrasing. What's going on? And they said, the baby's died. And what happened instead is, he said he bathed himself, he put oil on him, and then he went to the house of God and worshiped the Lord. So they're dumbfounded. This is odd. And they said to him, why are you? He said, the baby can't come back to me, but I can go to the baby. And that is a great verse to give to people that have lost someone, especially if they know it's a Christian, to remind them, look, No, they can't come back. They would, if they could, they wouldn't want to come back. But you can go to them. To me, that's such a good word of encouragement. So, and then what happens? And then of course Bathsheba she's weeping and crying that she's lost her baby, and all of this stuff that has happened to her. And it says that David comforted her, and then he slept with her, and Solomon, who was the youngest of David's children, was conceived. And the interesting thing, one of the things I was reading in the Jewish encyclopedia, was talking about, David had been given that promise. Nathan had told him that the kingdom was not going to leave him, that he would be forever would be in the lineage of Jesus, and would be on the throne. One of his would be on the throne. So I just wonder, did David get a little ahead of God? I'm wondering this too. I'm wondering if, again, we talked about how when he brought the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, he gave gifts, he shouted, they celebrated, and then it said then he went into his house and he went to Michal, and she criticized him. I'm wondering, because he had been, the thought was this child would be the one born in Jerusalem. All the others had been born elsewhere, but she rejected him, and then when he said, "Don't worry, I'll leave you," and he left her alone, and she, like we said, she died childless. So when that fell through, I'm just wondering, okay, this doesn't mean, I don't think I'm being a heretic. I'm just giving y'all something to think about. I'm wondering then is if he took it upon himself, just like how Sarah did, and because she's trying to figure out how in the world we're going to get a baby, and I can't have a baby. And so anyway, that's just my thought. But again, it backfired. And because of that, God was merciful. God kept his promises. But there still was a judgment. And folks, we need to understand this. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I'm speaking to the choir. But sometimes people think, oh, I'll ask God to forgive me and there'll be no repercussions. Sometimes there is. But you move on. That's the thing, is you move on. And yet, in God and his mercy, it's he will be with us. And if we never had anything happen to us where he forgave us and then nothing happened, then we wouldn't have a testimony to those that are going through stuff. I remember one minister said, I don't want to fight with anybody that doesn't have blood on them. In other words, that has never fought, has never had a battle. I don't want to fight with them. I want to fight with somebody to join with me that has experienced the blows, has experienced it, because they'll know what to do. They'll know how to do. So anyway, so that's with David, and that is the encouraging thing. So when you look at the first page of the handouts that John gave you, that's an outline of what all we're talking about now. And when you turn it over, and I think I've got to get. So when you turn it over, now this is just cool to me. Okay, you know how I like to do the rest of the stories, like Paul Harvey? All right, so when we look at this, see this wonderful name that I don't think I could, Phil, we're going to call him Phil. We're going to call him Phil. Now this is who Phil is. And again, this is the reason why, because we've turned our back to the Jewish people. We've lost so much information, so much history. So this dude here, Mr. Phil, we're going to call him, he is the grandfather of Bathsheba. Okay? So let's look a little bit about him. And this is from the Jewish Encyclopedia. Basically, when you look, it says that he was, I think he took sides with Absalom. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But he took sides with Absalom. And his goal, though, was not like what our goal, what David's goal was. His goal was to become king, because he thought he was all that. And he was known, he had a gifting. He was a sage and a seer. He was similar to Balaam. He had the same attitude as Balaam. And what I thought was interesting is, and you can read all of this when you get home. Let's see, so was misled by his, I'm looking at what I've highlighted. One of the things that I did not know, folks, so apparently David, in his zeal to build and to get close to God, David wanted to get to the abyss. So he starts building the foundation of the temple, and he's digging and digging. And according to, again, this is food for thought, okay? It doesn't mean you're going to go to hell or not go to hell or not be saved. But it's just some background, because the Bible does not tell us everything. This man, according to the Talmud, was the counselor of David's. And King David was searching for the abyss, and he broke the foundation stone of the world. And when he did, water starts gushing up. He didn't know what to do. So he goes to Phil, and Phil says, write the unspeakable name of God on a tile and then throw it in the hole. And it stopped it. Now, I know, guys, I can see your look. You're like, oh, my goodness, this is a fairy tale. I don't think so. But anyway, so we didn't hear about that. But the thing is right there at that spot where the abyss is where actually now, or with Solomon, that is where the temple was. Do you see the holiness and the mystic of the temple? The authority and the power of that it's sitting on top of the opening to the abyss is what they're saying. What do y'all think? Okay. Okay. And the other thing is this is the one, and because, we were talking about when David brought the first time he tried to bring the Ark of Covenant, he put it on a wagon, and that wasn't the case, and they went back, and I found out he found out how to bring it back by Phil. Phil told him. He said it has to be carried, and so that's where we got the information. So now you kind of know that little bit. But anyway, and I've got down here the websites for where you can find this information and some other. These are the two supporting documents or writings from Jewish people about that possibility. But so what happened, like again, is Phil had a grudge against David because what all David did to his granddaughter, and so he thought he would do a better job being king. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. Chapter 13. Now here we start again. So he's already repercussions, judgment, in that he lost the baby. The baby, an innocent child, died. Well, the sins of the father came down on the sons, and they started doing some of the same thing. So you've got Ammon and Tamar, and what this is, and if you look at your next page that I have for you, it's a family tree, And when you look down here, so the siblings, the first line says siblings, and so this is all of David's siblings, so that's interesting. And then the next is, here's all of David's wives, and so you have all of those. And so Tamar mother was Maacah, and her brother was Absalom. And then Haggith had Adonijah. Anyway, had him. And so, let's see, Adonijah. And Ammon was, Abinadab was his mother. So Ammon started noticing Tamar, his stepsister or second sister. And he liked her, so he tricked her into coming into his room and he raped her. Well, she says, you know, well, make me an honest woman, marry me. And he's disgusted with her then, and he kicks her out. So now her life is ruined, folks, because nobody's going to want to marry her. So she's done. Well, when Absalom finds out about it, he has her move in with him, and Absalom makes a plan. And so we've got a rape going. Now we've got, then on down, and I don't want to go into a lot of, but anyway, just telling you this is, so then the next thing happens is Absalom kills Ammon, and then Absalom decides that he should be the king, and again, Phil encourages him, and the reason why is because Phil's plan is to encourage Absalom to do it, and then when he encourages Absalom to do it, then he can supersede and take over then. So all of this is happening, and David has to flee Jerusalem. It's not safe. And we have that, and then there's another civil war, and there's more issues, there's more problems. There's another Benjamite by the, let's see, where is his name? Let's see. Anyway, there's a Benjamite that he decides that he wants to be the king, and so he causes lots of problems. And so we just see that there's just lots and lots of things that happen between the 11 through 20. Sheba is the guy's name. That's the last one that they list. And then, so we have that. And then there is an issue with, in chapter 21, the Gibeonites avenge. And there was a famine that occurred, and it's because there had been a long-standing covenant with the Gibeonites. Mine's got a G, but the others say with a J. But Saul broke it, and so then therefore there was a curse. And so then they had to correct that and fix that for the famine to go away. So like I said, that's it's anyway. It's I kind of had a little bit kind of dreaded this because again, it's just negative, negative, negative. But it is what it is. When you get down to chapter 22 is a song of praise that David wrote, and it's found also in the Psalms, chapter 18, and it's pretty much the same, maybe a little bit different. And all of this is about him reminiscing, going back through stuff, praising God. And then we go to chapter 23. Chapter 23 says, "These are the words of David, the oracle of David, son of Jesse, the oracle of the man exalted by the Most High, the man anointed by the God of Jacob, Israel, song of songs. he's going into more of that, and then he comes down, when you get down to verse 8, it's talking about David's mighty men, and he goes through all of them. Now, again, the whole point and purpose of doing this is to give y'all an introductory for you to go home and read it yourselves and understand it yourselves. But I like this story. I've heard it preached a bunch of times, and so I like this story, starting with chapter 11. And so it says, next to him was Shammah. Now, Shammah in Hebrew, in English, is the Lord is here. And it says, when the Philistines banded together at a place where there was a field full of lentils. In other words, there was a pea patch. Israel's troops fled from them, but Shammah took his stand in the middle of the field. He defended it and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory. And that's a message to us. The Lord will be with us, because sometimes the enemy wants to come into our little pea patch and steal and kill and try to destroy us. But we have to stand, because Shammah, the Lord is here, will be with us to fight. And can you imagine that? He is standing I don't know how big the field was, but he is standing there, and he is constantly, as they're coming around him, he is with the sword, is killing. And he won. He was able to keep his pea patch. So, like I said, that's an encouraging word. David counts the fighting men as chapter 24. He does he takes what is it called? A poll, a census. Thank you very much. He does a census, but it goes against God, and there's trouble. But what came from that was that David built an altar in chapter 18. And that altar is the actual spot. So the temple is built on, again, not just this supposed way into the abyss, but it is also the altar. It's a threshing floor. And so again, he built that, and we go on down to that he bought the threshing floor, so I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague on the people may be stopped. And so he does that, and the plague is stopped. And so in verse 23, Aronah said to David, "Let my lord the king take whatever pleases him and offer it up. Here are oxen for the burnt offering, and here are threshing sledges and ox yokes for the wood. O king," Anani gives all this to the king. Anani also said to him, "May the Lord your God accept you." But the king replied to him, "No, I insist on paying for it." So again, he was going to give it to him free, but David says, "No, I have to pay the price for it." And so he paid 50 shekels of silver for them. David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Lord answered prayer in behalf of the land, and plague on Israel stopped. So that's the end of 24, and that's the end of 2 Samuel. When we get into the Kings and the Chronicles, it goes into some more details about some other things. But I want to let you, I don't know if you realize this or know this, but we had the first temple was built, and in between the first temple and the second temple, there was another tabernacle, and it was David's. David was told he could not build the temple, but when he brought the Ark of the Covenant back, he set up a temple, a tabernacle, and put the Ark of the Covenant. And so if you look on the next page, David's tabernacle, I love this picture of what they thought what it might look like. And look, folks, it's open. It's not closed. Remember, Moses's was all closed. And if you look at this, the little stick figures and stuff. Over to the left, you see instruments. David had 24/7 praise and worship. And that praise and worship went on until Solomon had the opening of the temple, when that occurred. And this right here, this is where many of the Psalms were written. They would have scribes, and they're sitting around. Now, see, they're sitting around. They're in the presence of the Lord. I imagine, again, we've talked about this covenant. I imagine it kind of would probably exude some type of, feeling or electrical vibe to it. And so they're there 24/7, and they're praying, and they're worshiping the Lord and singing. There was choirs. He set up choirs to go rotate it and go through this. And what they would do is, as they're in the presence of the Lord would give them a new song. And they would start speaking it and then singing it. And the scribes would sit there and write it down. That's how we got a lot of the Psalms. David wrote 73 Psalms. We know that's what we know that. Moses wrote some of the Psalms. Others wrote some of the Psalms. But he's known for doing for 73 of them. And so when you look at this again, this page, and it says, with Moses' tabernacle, there really wasn't, the impression is there was pomp and circumstance, but there really wasn't any worship. When David came in, he instituted worship. That's why we have choirs. That's why we have singing, is because of Brother David. And so continuous praise with a large choir and musicians that were employed. He created a new order of worship. This act of David established a new pattern of worship, one that was more focused on joyful expression and communal participation than the more structured and ritualistic worship of the Moses tabernacle. David's tabernacle is significant because it highlights David's heart for God, his desire for God's presence, and his role in establishing a new era of worship for Israel, according to some Christian interpreters. So again, we have this tabernacle that he created of worship. And so again, it was totally different. And folks, the way it was set up, where it was set up, anyone that came into Jerusalem heard the music. So in Jerusalem, they would hear praise and worship. Always in the air is a song. Now we have it. We got the radio anytime we want. But, again, they didn't have that. But here, they had this. Now, the next page I want to show you, I don't know how many of y'all, do y'all know that there is a David's tent in D.C. that's been set up? In 2012, a man by the name of Jason Hershey felt impressed, and he set up a tent, and it's for 40 days. It was on the White House, near the White House. And then after the 40 days, they secured a 4-month permit in September of 2015, and it has remained in the National Mall since then, aiming for continuous worship. Folks, they have continuous worship there. This has been going on since 2012 because they're taking the same pattern that David did for the Capitol to have praise and worship. Ooh. Their mission statement says, David's Tent USA is a 24/7 musical prayer ministry to Jesus, led by inspired and passionate Christ followers on behalf of the United States of America to reach every American to participate in night and day worship to Jesus. And so you can go. So like I said, it's there. And a lot of times they'll have special guests and stuff like that. I heard about it probably in like 2018, something like that. I heard about it. And then it kind of left me. I forgot. But they have those that are on Facebook, you can join. And you can see the various things, that they're doing at the time. And Greg asked me, he said, you want to go there? And I'm like, you know what, that would be kind of a little bit of a motivation to go to the Capitol. I don't think Greg's been to the Capitol to see all of the monuments and memorials and all of that. But again, we've got that going, folks, and we don't even know it. We didn't realize that this is going on. Listen, I know that the woke folk and the liberals and the communists and all of these people are, and they're just raging and roaring. But I'm telling you, God's got an army. He's got a remnant. And they are there. They are in there. And isn't it amazing they've allowed them to stay this long? Yeah. I mean, when you look at this, look. What's in this corner right here? The Capitol. It's right beside, it's somewhere right near the Washington Monument. Woo! He's a good God. You know that? He is still on the throne. Amen. So that's what I have for you guys tonight. So, yes.
Yes. And you talking about the Capitol and this worship place in D.C.
Yeah.
That today they have inside the White House an official office for Christians.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Oh, I did leave out something. I'm thank you for doing that because I forgot something else.
Inside the White House, resting with the president and the vice president, his cabinet, everybody. And it's there open daily, Monday through Friday, just like business.
Wow. Yeah, it's, I'm telling you, I know we're going through kind of a time right now, and it looks kind of bleak, but I'm telling you, God's up to something. And it looks like, the dollar is dying, it's losing value, blah, blah, blah. Oh, woe is me. But I'm telling you, God's got a plan. And He's going to take care of us. Okay, let's see, I'm trying to find that last sheet of paper you guys have, I believe, or did I get, that is the last sheet of paper, okay. David prepares, oh, it's on this side. Okay, I saw this just before we left. I saw this post. We've talked about the red heifer and the new third temple is going to be built. This has happened, this was reported about 4 hours ago. Well, then it was 4 hours ago. The biblical red heifer ritual came to life in recent rehearsal ceremonies. They have 2 qualifying red heifers left, with one of the red heifers being considered perfect and ready to go, to be sacrificed this year. And so this is their plan. A red heifer raised in Israel was disqualified for sacrifice after finding 2 black hairs. See, it's got to be completely red. For just 2 black hairs, it was disqualified. So what they did then is they've taken that one and they've done a trial ceremonial sacrifice in the burning of it. The sacrifice of the 10th red heifer, and that's not this one, but when they officially do this, the 10th red heifer since the time of Moses. There's that number 10. The Lord, we keep up with the numbers, folks. And you've got that printout, so you can refer to it. The 10th red heifer since the time of Moses could begin on Sunday, August 3rd, which is Tish B'Av, which is a Jewish holiday, or during the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, which is October 6th through the 13th. The red heifer ashes will purify the 9 priests that they have, and then they, via the pool of Siloam, which is currently being widened. They're widening the Pool of Siloam, that will pave the way for the third Jewish temple to be built in the Temple Mount. The plan to build the temple will be either right next to the Dome of the Rock or possibly to replace the Al-Aqsa Mosque, according to an Israeli minister of housing and construction. The Lord's coming. And of course we don't know when, but I'm telling you, everything is starting to fall in place. And he's coming. And isn't it exciting that I was saying this yesterday, that he chose us to be here during this time? We could have been born in the 1200s, the 1800s, even early 1900s. But we're here now to see this and to testify and represent him to the lost. Amen?
Amen.
Jack, you can dismiss us, please.
I got a comment about